And across the ring, his opponent fighting out of the red corner, wearing the blue trunks with gold trim. He lives in Santa Monica, California, but now fighting out of Hawaii and coming into the ring at 205 pounds. His professional record, 50-1, 45 KOs. Ladies and gentlemen, he is known as the undisputed kickboxing heavyweight champion of the world, Dennis, the Terminator, Alexio.
In the golden age of American kickboxing, when the sport was exploding into mainstream consciousness through cable television and action movies, one man stood above all others as the embodiment of devastating knockout power. He was a giant from the Hawaiian Islands, a man whose legs were weapons of mass destruction and whose nickname struck fear into the hearts of opponents before they ever stepped into the ring. His name was Dennis Alexio, and the world knew him simply as the Terminator. For nearly a decade, he dominated the heavyweight division of kickboxing with a ferocity and efficiency that had never been seen before and has rarely been matched since. He was not just a champion, he was a phenomenon, a fighter who transcended his sport to become an icon of the combat sports world.
Dennis Alexio was born on August 28, 1959, in the lush paradise of Hawaii, a place that would seem an unlikely breeding ground for one of the most destructive fighters in history. Yet Hawaii has always produced warriors, from the ancient Hawaiian martial traditions to the modern era of combat sports. Something in the island culture, perhaps the combination of diverse ethnic influences and the physical demands of island life, creates fighters of extraordinary caliber. Alexio was the product of this environment, a man who grew up surrounded by the ocean and the mountains, developing a physical foundation that would later support his career of destruction. From an early age, Alexio was drawn to martial arts. He began training in traditional disciplines, absorbing the technical foundations that would later inform his kickboxing career. But it was when he discovered the world of full-contact fighting that his true potential began to emerge. He was blessed with physical attributes that seemed designed specifically for combat. Standing at 6 feet 4 inches tall, with a reach that allowed him to strike opponents from distances they could not counter, and possessing a natural explosive power that coaches could refine but could never teach, Alexio was a genetic gift to the sport of kickboxing. His transition to professional competition was rapid and violent. From his earliest fights, it was clear that Alexio was something special. He did not simply defeat his opponents, he destroyed them. His kicks landed with a thudding impact that could be heard throughout the arena. His punches snapped heads back and buckled knees, and his finishing instinct, that predatory sense of when an opponent was ready to be put away, was as refined as any fighter who had ever lived. The Hawaiian giant had arrived, and the kickboxing world would never be the same. His knockout percentage was staggering, hovering around 90% throughout his career. In an era when kickboxing was filled with tough, durable fighters who had been hardened by years of full-contact competition, Alexio was putting them away with a regularity that defied explanation. He accumulated world titles across multiple organizations, collecting championship belts like souvenirs from his travels through the heavyweight division. The International Sport Kickboxing Association, the Professional Karate Association, the World Kickboxing Association, all of them eventually wrapped their gold around his waist. The secret to his success was a combination of physical gifts and technical refinement that created a perfect fighting machine. His kicks were thrown with a mechanical precision that belied their devastating power. He could throw a roundhouse kick to the body that would lift opponents off their feet, or a head kick that would send them spinning to the canvas in unconscious heaps. His boxing was equally dangerous, with a straight right hand that traveled like a missile to its target, and hooks that could crack ribs through a guard. And his conditioning was legendary, allowing him to maintain his power output through rounds that would have exhausted lesser fighters.
To watch Dennis Alexio fight was to witness a masterclass in efficient violence. He was not a flashy fighter who sought to entertain the crowd with acrobatic techniques. He was a Terminator in the truest sense of the word, a machine designed for one purpose: executing that purpose with cold, calculated efficiency. Every movement served a function. Every technique was designed to damage. There was no wasted motion, no theatrical flourishes, just the systematic destruction of whoever stood across from him. The body kick was perhaps his most devastating weapon. Alexio understood that a fighter who cannot breathe cannot fight, and he targeted the ribs and liver with relentless precision. His roundhouse kick to the body was not merely powerful, it was perfectly placed, sliding between the elbow and the hip to compress the organs underneath. Opponents who absorbed these kicks found themselves unable to take deep breaths, their stamina draining away with each impact. By the middle rounds, they were often standing on borrowed time, waiting for the finishing blow that they knew was coming. Part of what made Dennis Alexio so dominant was his extraordinary physical construction. Standing 6 feet 4 inches tall and fighting at weights that ranged from the low 200s to occasionally higher, he possessed a combination of height, reach, and power that created overwhelming advantages against most opponents. His limbs were long levers that generated tremendous force, and his frame was muscular enough to absorb punishment that would have broken smaller men. Beyond his physical gifts, Dennis Alexio possessed a psychological makeup perfectly suited to combat. He was not a trash talker who sought to intimidate opponents with words before the fight. He was something more unsettling, a calm, controlled presence who seemed utterly unconcerned about the violence he was about to participate in. This composure unnerved opponents who expected anger or aggression, who had prepared themselves for verbal warfare, only to find themselves facing a man who treated the upcoming fight as simply another day at the office. The effect on opponents was profound. Many fighters entered the ring against Alexio already partially defeated, their body language betraying the doubts that plagued their minds. They had seen the highlight reels, the endless parade of knockouts, the broken bodies that Alexio left in his wake. They knew, on some level, that they were likely to join that parade. This psychological disadvantage manifested in tentative offense, in excessive caution, in the hesitation that Alexio inevitably exploited with his finishing power. The Terminator did not just defeat opponents physically, he defeated them mentally before the first punch was thrown. When we assess the legacy of Dennis Alexio, we must consider not just his record, but his impact on the sport of kickboxing and on combat sports more broadly. He was a transformative figure who helped elevate American kickboxing to international prominence, who demonstrated that Western fighters could dominate in a sport with Asian roots, and who brought mainstream attention to a sport that had previously existed on the margins of public consciousness.